your mask.
Yeah.
All right. What's up, everybody? Lee, are we rolling?
We're rolling.
All right. Matthew,
What's
you
up?
feeling good?
Yeah, feeling great, buddy.
What's up, everybody? Listen, we appreciate that. We're doing something brand new, and that is having a chat, a live chat, about something we just did amongst people that were involved with it, and we're doing it with the fans. We're doing it with people that might have watched our show. And if you haven't watched our show, for those who don't know, I'm not going to assume everybody knows what we're talking about, but we just this week launched a show on Peacock called Lost Speedways. And Matthew Dillner here is a producer on it. My name's Mike Davis. I'm a producer on it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is the producer on it. But we wanted to just do something that we've never done before, and that is decompress and talk about a project that we've just been doing for the past 6 months with you guys, with everybody, and have an open conversation. And we'll see how this goes. At the very worst, me and Matthew are going to sit here and talk, because that's what we do every day. But I'm going to tell you something. This project, Lost Speedways, which again is on Peacock, it's the NBC Universal News streaming network. It came out Wednesday. As of right now, it's not behind a paywall. And so all you have to do is go subscribe to Peacock. Go to peacocktv.com, subscribe, and you can access Lost Speedways right now. And hopefully people that are into this YouTube live chat, maybe you've seen it, maybe you've caught a couple episodes, maybe you haven't. It's okay.
Maybe they heard about it on the Dale Jr. download.
That's right. Maybe it's not going anywhere. I love some of the questions we've received this week of, hey, what time does it come on? It's not that kind of show.
Hey, Robert Presley called us, yesterday or the day before, and he's like, man, I missed it. And I'm like, no, you didn't.
Nobody can miss it. That's a beautiful thing about this crazy technology and the crazy platform, these streaming platforms. All 8 episodes of Lost Speedways are on Peacock right now. Peacock, by the way, I know you've done this. I went last night, did a little navigating around the place. I mean, my goodness, do they got some stuff on there. I'm not going to sit there and tell you Lost Speedways is the only awesome thing on this thing. I'm telling you,
jacked to go watch Brave New World. That's the one I'm excited about.
I got it's got a channel just for The Office and having Office shorts, and so it's fantastic. All kinds of movies, shows. Peacock is a fantastic platform already. It's a lot of fun.
Curious George.
Is that what you've been into?
No, that's George? What my son's into.
I got you. Well, you are you're into whatever your kids are into. So, but here's the thing. We've been in such a fog with this project since January that as a group, which, there's 5 or 6 of us in here right now, as a group, the people that were involved with this project, we have not really had a chance to get together as a group and really kind of just talk about it and really just breathe and exhale. And I want to do that. I also want to encourage you guys. Lee is going to be monitoring this chat room. I encourage you to ask questions. If you have watched some of the episodes and you have favorite moments or things that really stuck out, I'd love to hear them. Matthew would love to hear them. And I'm not even saying that as a cliche. I'm telling you, these 2 individuals that you see right here are very intrigued about your opinions, and don't be shy with detail. Also, we want to know about other Lost Speedways. Now, this gentleman right here has a map, and I'll get into his backstory in a second. But I'm curious about tracks that may be abandoned, may be sitting in something that meant a lot to you. Let us know what they are. We want to know about them. I want to know if he's got, maybe he has some tracks that are not on his map that he'd love to add to it. And so this is where we can kind of collaborate with you. We've done this in the past at Dirty Mo Media, where I know we would be struggling for an idea, and we would just go to Periscope or we'd just go to Facebook Live and like, who would you guys want on a particular podcast? And man, we would just get ideas. So think of this that way. And in the meantime, I don't think that Lost Speedways is a show that you have to know the context to appreciate it. I don't even think you have to be a race fan to appreciate it. And we've seen a lot of comments like that. But some of you may like context, and some of you may want to hear sort of the what we call the deep cuts or the bonus material, and maybe we can answer some of those questions for you today. So that's what we got. I think we've covered everything. Leah, she's going to just holler at us if there's something that she wants to add to the conversation from you guys. So go ahead and and start firing away on that. In the
Leah's
meantime,
at home in the dirty booth.
she's back in there,
Dirty mode.
and it's freezing in here. I don't know why it's so cold, but hopefully,
I love it.
Yeah, he likes it. Here's the thing I really want to do. First of all, I want to talk about Dale Jr. Dale has been working his butt off the past several weeks, really last month, really kind of promoting this show and really kind of, you guys know the story by now, hopefully. Dale is the one that really championed this whole idea for a TV show. Fought for it a lot last year with his bosses and the people at NBC. Stood firm on it. I think that there was all kinds of ideas for a new Dale Jr. TV show, but this is the show he wanted to make.
Yes.
And he has explained a lot in different places. I think he was even on the Today Show was this morning.
Today, yeah.
Talking about what what inspired him to do this. Those stories are out there, and you can get them. I really want to get Matthew to tell his story. I am actually got questions that I have never heard about Matthew. I mean, he's been working with us for a couple years here at Dirty Mo Media. A lot of you guys know him from the download and the work he does there. But if Dale Jr. was the champion behind the TV show, I think you can then go back and say that this guy right here is the one that really kind of introduced the entire concept of finding intrigue and fascination in abandoned racetracks. And Matthew, I want to know where that started. I know that you guys started a map, but I want to go back further. I want to go back, and I also want to understand, I want folks to understand your entire backstory in racing, period. Because I've seen pictures of this guy in a fire suit. I've seen him in a driver suit.
Yeah,
and I don't know much about
second
this.
place finisher.
Well, hey, second place, I mean, come on now. It's not, is it a race of two?
Sometimes.
It wasn't was it a drag race? Okay, if it wasn't a drag race, and if it wasn't at the Four Wide Nationals, I'm impressed. So, all right, take us back, Matthew, to the beginning. I want to hear your backstory. I want to know about, and you should.
You should probably take my phone.
Take his phone away from him.
Television professionals, which clearly I'm not.
So when did this all start?
Honestly, it started as a kid, like a lot of people in this sport. You know, you fall in love with it as a child.
Yeah.
And my dad was a local racer.
Local where?
Islip Speedway in Long Island, New York. There's actually, if you watch the Dale Jr. download, when you see Leah and I in the booth, there's a picture of him in the background, an old number 51 car. My dad wasn't some big-time racer. You know, they had a junkyard car that they put together. They drag raced first, then they went... he couldn't afford a modify. There was only two divisions, so he raced figure eights.
So, wait a second. He raced figure eights with a junkyard car?
Yeah, junkyard car.
So literally you got your car out of a junkyard?
Yep, and built it in my grandmother's garage. So nothing like you have these days where you have speed shops and stuff. They needed a part, they go to the junkyard.
So how much? What would you say the value of that car was when?
How much money you got in your pocket?
Well, not much, but still may be about right.
Pretty much.
Okay, so as bare bones as it gets.
Bare bones as it gets. So.
Okay.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Is this it?
Thanks, Dustin. Dustin, by the way, is our editor on Lost Speedways.
And we're going to talk about him for sure.
But that's my dad's race car. I don't know if you can see it right there, but he's got sunglasses on in there, trying to look really cool. You could tell something really cool here. This is my favorite story about this picture. You see the rub rail on the side of that car?
Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
I have no idea.
So they got told the first week, don't come back to the track if you don't have a rub rail on the side of your car. And the day before the race, they were like, oh man, my Uncle John and my dad were like, man, we didn't put that rub rail on the car. And they were driving around, they were like, wait a minute, look at that stop sign right there. That rail for the stop sign, that would make a good rub rail. So they didn't do it in their neighborhood. They went to a neighborhood down the road at night, knocked down a stop sign, and put a rub rail in the car. It had the holes drilled in it, so it was perfect.
So what was his name?
My dad, Bob.
Yeah. Bob
Dillner Sr.
Bob Dillner Sr. So Bob Dillner Jr.
My brother is named after my father.
Okay.
Robert Douglas Dillner.
All right.
But yeah, Dad was a racer, and he stopped racing to put food on the table. You know, he had my brother, and my brother was a few years old, and this is before me, and they decided, he decided, I mean, racing, how can I race if I can't put food on the table? So the thing they never stopped was bring me to races, though. So I went to my first race in my mom's womb, and got to. I guess I just grew up in it, So from that point.
And Islip Speedway, we hear you talk a lot about it.
Yeah, I have a big.
What about Islip Speedway? What was good about it?
Islip Speedway was the most unusual track. It had a lot of pizzazz for. It had a promoter named Larry Mendelson, who was this genius promoter that pretty much birthed Demolition Derby, so many grand events like the World Championship Figure 8 race that you saw in Wide World of Sports back in the day. Who thought a little racetrack like that would be on Wide World of Sports back in those days? But he was a genius promoter, and it was a special place. A lot of great race car drivers raced there. NASCAR raced there a few times. Richard Petty won there. Bobby Allison.
So it's paved.
Paved, fifth of a mile oval.
Fifth of a mile.
So smaller than a quarter mile. So
that is small.
It was a bull ring.
Wow. Did it have any banking?
Had a little bit of banking.
Okay.
And, they ran modifieds as their featured division.
You ran modifieds on a fifth of a
Jet
mile.
Jet fighters in a gymnasium.
Man, I can't even imagine that.
Overpowered cars for a little tight racetrack. So, but it was special. It's where I grew up. I mean, I guess you always have a hunkering for the places you grew up at. Whether you grew up like yourself, going to certain ballparks, or you grew up going to certain racetracks.
Yeah.
They become kind of part of who you are.
And do you remember any fights?
I remember a few fights. I remember a few tragedies. Well, my dad was involved in some fights back before I was born.
Okay.
And
he had to clean himself up a little bit with kids, though.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I've never said this story publicly, but why not? Right? You're all listening, right?
Let's do it now.
My dad got suspended by NASCAR.
Fantastic. This is great news. Wow.
He got a letter from Daytona Beach, like official. The Dillner Brothers Racing Team, Bob and John Dillner and his crew are not permitted into the Islip Speedway.
You worked for NASCAR for quite a while.
And I tried to dig up to see if the archives maybe would have the letters, and they don't.
Why did he get suspended?
Oh, boy. This is the part I probably shouldn't tell, but I'm going to tell it anyway. He had this guy that kept on racing him a little rough, and he dumped him. My dad got dumped, and he was spun out, and he says he just remembered seeing the guy's car spun out, and he was backed up against the wall, and he had that moment.
He flipped. The switch flipped.
Flipped.
Yeah.
And he said he just got into the gas, second gear, and was about to hit third gear and hit this guy. That's how much speed he built up. And when he was about to hit him, he saw out of the driver's side the guy's leg start to come out. He was getting out of the car.
Oh, wow.
And my dad hit the car. He tried to turn, and he hit the tail of the car, and he said the thing spun around like this because he hit it so hard with the guy hanging on for dear life. So my dad kind of crumped down in the seat, a little embarrassed, because obviously he didn't mean to hurt, wouldn't want to hurt the guy.
Right.
The guy was not hurt. But then my uncles saw the initial wreck, so they were back in the pit area.
And your uncle was
my Uncle John,
also a driver, or was he part of the crew?
Yes, they split the team.
Okay.
My uncle would drive one night, my dad would drive the other, and then my Uncle Bobby and Uncle Guy, on my mother's side, they were there too, and they went back in the pit area. And they towed this poor guy in. And they didn't know what my dad had done. So the guy had enough punishment. That's enough for one day. And they were towing the guy in, and my uncles kind of got on the car and started beating him up a little bit. So,
wow, poor guy.
Yeah.
Dude the Dillners kind of did a number on him that night.
It's not a very proud
Dillner
moment.
family. Are you sure not the whole clan got suspended there?
Yeah, they did. The whole crew was not allowed at Islip Speedway for a number of weeks. And the funny thing is, the driver actually ended up bringing my dad a new car to help them with their operation. Like it definitely sent a message, and the guy had a little more respect, and he didn't mess with my dad from that point on.
Why did you talk about? I've seen this, and before we get into your fascination with Lost Speedways, but Islip Speedway went away eventually.
Yeah.
How old were you, and what happened?
Oh, geez, I guess I was maybe 8 or something.
Okay, so you were still very young.
Yes, I was very young. It was where I spent every Saturday night of my childhood, and we would go Friday nights up to Stafford Motor Speedway, 3 hours away, and then Saturday nights we spent at Islip. And we had history there. That's where my dad raced. That's where our heroes were, and that's where.
Who were the heroes?
Me, Charlie Drzonbeck, white number 1, hard charger, he was a bull in a china closet.
Did he race against your dad?
No, he was a modified
Okay.
racer.
He was a modified racer.
And,
but you
he's
fell in love
incredible.
with modifieds, I'm
Fell
sure.
in love. Charlie Drzonbeck was the reason I went to the racetrack as a kid. And but then it closed in 1984.
1984.
And I could remember every detail.
Yeah.
Every emotional detail of that last night.
So you were sort of born into racing, so to speak, then, and when is it because of Islip that you became fascinated with abandoned tracks? Because did Islip become abandoned, or did they tear it down?
It turned into a cookie factory. So,
well, if you're going to turn a track into something,
now later in life is where you start to realize the things that shape you, whether it's something that happened in your life or an environment. It can end up shaping you 10, 15, 20 years from now in ways that as a child you didn't realize.
Oh, of course.
And so Islip closed, and so I remember the racing being over. Bob Park wins the last race. TK
Bob Park, hold on.
Steve Park's
dad won the last race
modified race. TK Tommy Kraft in the number 09, I think. I need to get rid of this alarm. What is going on here? Won the last ever race there. Freddie Kraft's dad from Door Bumper Clear.
Hold up, mine is blown.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know Freddie Kraft's dad raced.
Freddie Kraft's dad.
DBC Freddie.
Figure 8 racer.
Door Bumper Clear Freddie.
And Freddie was a 2-time Rookie of the Year.
Freddie.
In the same division at the same track. Freddie has a racing history too.
Our Freddie.
Yes, our Freddie. I grew up with Freddie at Islip and River.
Did everybody know this? Nobody knew this.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but I just remember
This
TK winning the race.
Ask questions.
And sometimes we work together on the download.
We don't take time to ask ourselves questions about each other. All right, this is fascinating.
So okay, here it goes. So he wins the last race, and I remember just going in the pit area. And I think I sat in somebody's race car that night, and I just remember all these details, seeing Bill Park and Richie Evans and all these greats. And then I'll never, ever, ever forget, I remember my dad picking me up and putting me in the back of the bed of his 1984 blue and white Ford pickup truck, and my brother, because it was a single cab pickup truck, so it didn't have a back seat. So before, laws are they are, just ride in the back of a pickup truck. And I just, I'll never forget just the dew, because we were staying in the pits so long. It was already, you had that dew, that moisture on the tailgate, and it was a little chilly and kind of foggy, the lights of Islip Speedway. And I remember pulling out of there, sitting in the back tailgate and just holding on to the tailgate right next to my brother. And I can still sit there and close my eyes right now, and I'm not trying to sound whimsical. I can close my eyes right now and I can see the lights the last time I saw them, and curving around the junkyard and the trees, and then Islip was gone, and I never laid eyes on it again. And that's not why I did this project, but it's really the deep core of why I grew a passion for nostalgia and history and that emotion.
There's something about venues.
Yes.
Okay, and I knew this before we did this project, but I was reminded, and I'll broaden this out to not just racetracks, but like there's something for me about venues. As a kid, I used to draw them. Like I used to draw football stadiums. I just used to love.
You grew up in Birmingham.
I grew up in Birmingham, and then moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and was just
Well, you went to Rickwood Field as a kid, which
went
is
to
a
Rickwood Field, which it was interesting in this because in Lost Speedways we do an episode on Hinchliffe Stadium, and there's a lot of similarities. If I don't want to give away a lot of details to our episodes yet, I'm going to try really hard not to, but there's some major similarities between Rickwood Field.
Historically, it's incredible.
In Hinchliffe, and what happened at both of those venues. But yes, I've always been fascinated with venues, and I think there's something to that. I think there's a human interest connection to whether it's a house you grew up in, or a place you went to your first ball game, or a place that you went to your first race.
Yes.
Or, just in something about structures and venues. And, the thing about them is structures and venues don't last. They're made of wood and metal and things that over time deteriorate. And yet we look at them as indestructible, right? Especially when you're a kid.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And when reality sets in, usually when you get older, and in your case though, Islip was done early for you. Man, it's almost like you lose a member of your family, right?
I went to bed that night, and I remember washing my face with the washcloth, and I remember my mom grabbing my shoulders and saying, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine, Mom."
Yeah.
And I went. I'm not afraid to say it. I went underneath the bunk bed. My brother had the top bunk. I had the bottom bunk in this little room. And I remember getting under the covers and crying. I don't remember not crying. I remember just crying myself to sleep.
The other thing about Birmingham is that another place that's very special to me is Legion Field. And it's not just because that's where I went to my first Alabama football games.
Oh, I thought you were going to say.
Or my first Birmingham Stallions football games in the USFL back in '83.
Yeah.
But my dad played there. My dad played there in high school, and it's still there. But man, it's like falling apart at the seams, right? And so all these places, like this is something that through this project, Lost Speedways, it just those feelings sort of got stirred for us, and it got stirred for other people, by the way. And I think that of all the preparation we would have done, and we did back in November and December. Yeah. The one thing I wouldn't have seen coming was the reminder of how important these things are to a lot of people even today, even if they've been gone for 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. Man, there's those memories and people connect, and it's an emotional connection.
Yes.
There's an emotional connection. And I feel bad for people that don't have feel that about something.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like the ending of our pieces of our episodes. I don't want to give it away, but each episode kind of has this ending that's really special, special to a lot of us in this room, and we kind of stumbled upon it on how we were doing it, and we were interviewing one of our historians.
Yeah.
Remember Charlie Craig? You were there at that one.
Yep.
And the interview was over. I kind of had a list of questions, and I just saw him between questions. He kept on looking out at the racetrack and just kind of losing his focus, and just you could see his mind was going. And I was like, every time he did it. And then at the end of the interview, I was like, hold on a second. I'm like, hey, let me ask you a question. And I said, just look out there for a second for me. And I just, he just looked out there, and you could tell he was thinking. I'm like, okay, tell me what you feel right now. And he just was so poetic because, like you said, he had been a competitor there. He'd been a fan there, sitting in the concrete stands, and you could see that passion just literally came alive. And it was like a wow moment, after he gave his eloquent answer, which is actually the ending soundbite of that Metrolina story. Yeah. It was like we were all just standing there like, wow, what just happened? That was moving.
He says a very compelling line at the end of the Metrolina episode, and you can feel it. You can feel that. You can see him kind of holding on, trying to keep it all together, because he allowed himself to get to that point of, getting into that emotional state of the realization that it's gone. A lot of people also don't realize this, but I think that our coverage of Metrolina would probably be the last thing you'll see of Metrolina, because that thing was gone within a month or two. Was it not?
I just went there about a month ago.
Yeah.
Because I heard it was getting dismantled finally. And I'll say usually the developer is the enemy. For most of us Lost Speedways type people, and the development group that was, they didn't sell it. They're just redeveloping it, and they were so kind to us to let us have, run of the place to see it one last time, to document it one last time, and now. About a month ago, I went and I drove by there, and it's leveled. It's gone. Every place we walked, the hill that Dale and I walk up at the beginning of the episode, all those shots just mean so much more now. All that experience that we had and the visualizations we can have in our heads, and all that means so much more now because, I stood there in the same places we were shooting the show, and it's gone. It's like it's leveled.
I'm going to look again. These are episodes you can watch right now on Peacock, and I encourage you to do that. And we're talking about a particular episode. I think it's the first one, actually. Metrolina's. It's called Earnhardt Proving Grounds, And there's stories in that I think that you'll find interesting, and you don't have to be a race fan. I don't think you'll have to even be an Earnhardt fan, frankly. But if you are, my gosh, this is your episode.
Yes.
So, because this whole series isn't just an Earnhardt series. I mean, we dedicated one episode to really kind of hit on to the backstory of the family there. But, okay, before I go to Leah, I want to ask you this. When do you remember first having a conversation about the prospects of this turning into a television show? Because I should say, and I want to say this.
Great question.
Matthew has worked on a website called Lost Speedways for a decade.
Yeah, since I think like 2011, social media kind of platform and website.
So Lost Speedways became a tangible project for him long before this, and it was a website. It was, it has a social media presence, and that was all engineered by Matthew.
And just a few other friends.
Right. There were people that he was collaborating with, just almost like this little exclusive club of,
like
people
Dale's Dirty Mo posse. It's my nerd posse of
and so he's got some fascinating photos. In fact, if you want to know a little hidden secret, like if you watch the download, and is this shot behind us? Okay.
It's back there.
So like these are some of the images that Matthew would have taken during his little expeditions to speedways.
Exploring.
And it's so funny. We give him a hard time. I like to characterize it by saying Matthew has been trespassing and breaking into speedways for more than 10 years. But I don't want to do that. While there may be a little bit of truth to that.
Maybe.
The fact is that he goes and he takes remarkable photography, and he made this website. Now, I wanted to say that. Do you have anything to add to that? Because I was using that to get to the question I wanted to ask.
No, I mean, just that's kind of what connected Dale and I.
Oh, the website.
Yeah,
okay.
I did a calendar too, and sold a calendar, and my wife and I would, we literally made the calendar all ourselves, from design to shipping, everything. And
with the photography that you would take at these tracks.
Yeah, and Dale saw it and was like, man, that's just cool. And then he realized what I did, and he's like, hey, I've got this map I need to show you. And I was like, all right, yeah, I got this map too. And it was like, wow, here's this guy that's been around. We've been around each other. He came into the Busch Series in 98.
98 full time.
Yeah, full time. I came in my first few Cup races and Busch races, Xfinity now. Back in the day, we're in 98. So I kind of came in around the same time. So here's this guy that I've known for a long time, but I didn't have any relationship with.
And so people just know even more
just
context behind you. You came in as a videographer.
Yeah, for TNN, all that stuff.
So Matthew, for years and years, you would see him in the garage with a camera on his shoulder, just capturing footage for, whether it's for
networks,
ESPN, right,
NBC.
Exactly. So that's where Dale and Matthew would have crossed paths initially. And then when you come up with the calendar, you're saying that's where Dale was like, hey, I got a map. And you're like, hey, I got a map. Let's look at our maps,
Look at our maps. And
a couple of dorks looking at maps.
And then it's like, he wasn't on Facebook and social media really that much then. And he's like, here, text me this. And so I go from being around this guy for 17 years or something, 18 years, and just nodding and saying hi and having a mutual respect of working relationship to, hey, man, this guy's texting me all the time. And, heck, I put something up about my calendar, and he promoted it for me and stuff. And just to be a nice guy, And that's where we realized we both share this very obscure passion.
Gotcha. All right, so back to the question.
Yes.
When do you recall first having even the prospects of this becoming a television show?
I had an idea for this television show years ago, but there's no way I was going to make it happen. And I remember specifically you, Mike Davis, in a meeting when I first started working with Dirty Mo, bringing it up, like loosely, like that Dale might have this interest. Maybe we could do something, blah, blah. And I was like, nah, like I don't think he really means that, because to me it was like always this fantasy, this pipe dream, I guess you'd say it. And I think Dale had it in the back of his head, for a while, like, hey, this could make a really good TV show.
So you're saying this would have happened right after you started working for us?
Right as I started working for
Okay,
Dirty
so
Mo
then
Media.
this would have predated than last year because you've been here for 3 years now, right?
Exactly.
So that's interesting because that's not. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
My first recollection of this would have been last year when I was with Dale in a car coming back from somewhere, and I remember him being on the phone with the higher ups at NBC.
Yes.
And this is the part where I remember him being so steadfast and firm in his desire to do this show. And I remember specifically him saying, and I want Matthew Dillner on the show with me. Like, it felt like this could not be done right without having you on camera. And this is the point. If there's anything that I want people to take away from, and because we do an okay job at the beginning of the shows explaining your role and how Dale says, Matthew Dillner is the perfect man for this job. But now you might know why he's the perfect man for the job. I think we say he's the perfect man for the job, but I don't think we say why he is. And that's the kind of deep context that I would like people to walk away with. But going back to the conversation, I remember Dale being adamant that you had to be on camera. And while I didn't know exactly the depths of y'all's past at the time and the maps and all that stuff, I just knew he was adamant about it. And I couldn't wait to tell you. And at that time, I think this was the conversation that they said no thanks to. There was no thought that this TV show was going to be a reality.
Yeah.
It was just that Dale was really, kind of putting all of his chips in your corner, and I thought that was really cool, and I couldn't wait to tell you.
When I got hired over here, I had lost my job over at NASCAR, and Dale and you were the first people to really reach out to me. And I say this to people all the time, not on camera, but because I don't care. I want people to know the loyalty, the fact that Dale and you gave me a chance over here to kind of reinvent myself, and now this to come come full circle with the Lost Speedways thing. I get emotional talking about it because, I'm big on loyalty, probably too much, but getting this chance just is everything to me. So it's cool.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Also, a good cry would be worth another 10 or 12,000.
Absolutely.
10 or 12,000 views, probably.
Absolutely.
We'd cut a teaser if you did it.
Yep.
So, okay.
It's really not that hard to make him
I'm down
cry.
if he wants to go there.
Yeah.
Dustin, don't zoom in.
You zoom in real tight. Get that tear. We can do something with a tear. All we need is a tear. We'll let Dustin Lee, who edited this entire series, we'll let him go to work. Next thing you know, it'll be The Notebook.
Please don't cuddle with me.
So check this out. All right, so I'm trying to think back.
Yeah.
Then I remember we had a meeting that it was at the end of September.
Yeah.
And this is when we had the green light to do this project. I'm really going to force myself not to get into the weeds on that because I don't think you guys much care about it, and I don't blame you. Hey, so then we had meetings, and this is when we did this. I do want to say this.
Turns into an episode of The Office.
I do want to say this. I wanted to speak for a second about the criteria of the tracks, and I wanted to do this before we go into the fan questions because if there are people that want to give us recommendations, we've seen it ever since the news of this show came out. Months ago, it's like, hey, why don't you do this track? And it was all I could do not to respond. Like, there were people that would say, hey, you really ought to do Middle Georgia Raceway. And I'd be like, we just got back from there. But I couldn't want to go. I didn't want to give it away. But there was a specific criteria in which we used to identify tracks that we thought were TV show potential.
Very.
Okay? And I want to make sure that we talk about that because this may even help you if you have ideas. Like, I'm going to give you an example of what didn't make a criteria is that, well, no, actually, I should do the criteria first. One, it had to be visually stunning. Like there had to be
there, tangible.
It had to be visual. You had to have something there, which is why, as much as it rips me up, we'll never have Birmingham International Raceway, which was my track.
Never say never.
There's nothing
there. There's
there.
still a little outline.
There's a little outline. That's not enough.
I think there's a little post.
I would be a complete hypocrite if Now, if they dug it up and we found race cars underneath the pavement or something,
The scoreboard's gone.
but everything's gone. I was there just a couple years ago, and so in fact, it was when I went back home to go to a game at Rickwood, because every year at Rickwood Field they have the Rickwood Classic, and so me and my dad, my uncle, we went back.
Do
to
they all
this
wear
game.
the wools?
They go throwback.
Oh.
It's sort of like Darlington, where
Love that.
they'll specify an era.
Yeah.
And they'll replicate the uniforms of that era.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
sometimes it's not wool, but sometimes it is. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, and by the way, now it's all coming back to me. As I was at the Rickwood Classic, there was a gentleman there who recognized me from the download. And he was a big fan of the download. It's just so cool when you go into these areas and people are fans of the shows that we're on and that we produce. And so anyways, that's a side story. I swung by BIR because it's not far from where Rickwood is. BIR is in the fair where the old fairgrounds were.
Now there's a
I used to go there as a kid, not just to the race, but also to what was called Kiddieland. And Kiddieland was just this little amusement park, which to me felt like Disney World. I'm sure it was just a step or two below, a weekend fair. I have no idea, but like you can go on some old Facebook pages that have old photos of Birmingham, and you'll see pictures of Kiddieland. Anyways,
But
go ahead.
You went to Birmingham. Why though? Like you asked me. Like I want to know. So why did you first go to Birmingham?
Birmingham International Raceway?
Yeah, what made you go to the races?
I'm from Birmingham. I was born in Birmingham. My family's from Birmingham. And my second cousin, my dad's first cousin, Henry Brook, raced there. And so, and Henry Brook just last year was inducted into the Alabama Auto Racing Hall of Fame. He was good. I almost brought up to Red Farmer Henry Brook, but the download during that show, it's not about me.
You don't know when we're sitting at
Y'all
the
think
download.
y'all are the only ones with a racing background. Y'all look at me as the PR guy. But no.
You got family that raced at Birmingham International.
100%.
Which Birmingham International isn't just some small little blip on the radar.
Big track.
A big track, but like the damn Alabama
Allison's
gang and
Red Farm.
Oh my God! And
Neil Bonnet.
even in the later years of the All Pro Series, the people that raced there, Toby Porter, like all these different names, and then it became the Southeast Series, and so many great race car drivers raced there.
After I moved to Chattanooga, I was in high school, and a buddy of mine, his dad was working a race at BIR, and I got to go back for a race, and we went back as friends of Jody Ridley.
Yes.
And so we were all on Jody Ridley's hauler.
Heck yeah.
Trailer, whatever you want to call it.
Number 98.
And his son was spotting for him, and we were watching Jody Ridley, and I knew of Jody Ridley certainly because of just being a racing fan, but I just remember after the race just being down in the garage and just listening to Jody talk about the race. I was just mesmerized by that.
Do you remember when Birmingham closed?
I don't. I just know it was so mired in politics, man.
Yes.
It was just political
Do you
nonsense.
remember the video of when even if you're not a racing fan, those grandstands meant something. Those covered grandstand
big covered
there
grandstand
were one of the oldest covered grandstands in
Yeah.
America at the time.
Yeah.
And there was a news crew. I remember watching the footage of the news crew, and it was a mayor or something
Yep.
swinging that first swing of
That
the
ball.
wrecking ball.
Yep.
And they were all laughing and celebrating.
Yeah.
So you have all these politicians and people laughing and celebrating as this giant ball gets swung and hits it. And you're seeing this beautiful old covered grandstand crumble. And
It had architecture
I'm
to
sitting
it, too.
there, I'd only been there maybe 12, 15 times. And I'm sitting there watching the video and I'm getting teary eyed. Because it's like,
You've
God,
been to BIR
you're-
15 times?
Yeah.
You really had?
Yeah.
Why were you there?
My brother and I started speed51.com, a short track website, back in the day. And I would go down there multiple times a year to cover the
Wow.
races down there.
That's fantastic.
We need to get Dustin a chair, poor guy.
These guys that they like standing. I don't know what's the deal. There's chairs all around him. So where were we? BIR.
man.
Yeah.
What a
So
place.
that's my backstory. You were asking my thing. Like, yeah.
I saw a squirrel.
We would go there, watch Henry Brook. Obviously,
cool.
You know.
I'm going to look up more about your cousin.
Yeah, man.
Second cousin.
So criteria that had to be visually stunning.
Yes.
We're
back.
We're back to criteria. Yeah.
Let's roll.
We had to. You had to see something. 2, there had to be stories there that we knew. It didn't mean we had to know the stories already. It meant that in our vetting, we had to go look and see, like, all right, who raced there? What happened there? What's this track's story? What happened to it? And
it's gonna be a compelling reason to get us there.
There's stories in every track. I think like there is literally a story every which way you turn. But we had to go chase something and whether we resolved it on the show or whether we didn't, there just needed to be something there for us to go and help tell the story, which I think one of the things that was really fascinating for me is how there's a lot, not only are there stories, but man, there's stories that actually haven't been told right. And man, there are a lot of people out there that are eager to tell those stories before it's too late. Like there's some very important things that feel like they need to be said about stuff. And one of the things about our series is the Asheville episode with what was the historian's name?
Phil Combs.
Phil Combs, man.
His father was Roby Combs.
Go watch the Asheville episode and just feel the emotion about him. That man had something to say and get off his chest about the way that went down. And by God, you could feel some anger in his voice. And when he starts talking about that funeral, he's like,
"Oh, geez.
Is
when the track closed,
the dirtiest? What do you call it? The dirtiest thing that ever happened."
So it was the biggest funeral, the dirtiest deal, and it was the biggest funeral in the history of North Carolina.
And I feel like there's a lot of Phil Combs out there that have that same thing. Maybe it's not anger, maybe it's not emotional, but there's just like, man, think about all the racers that might have raced there that you don't even know about, and that have fascinating stories. So. Anyways, those were kind of the things that we wanted to pick from, and from there we started whittling down our list, right?
Yeah, and that was the hardest part.
Oh, this guy was impossible to deal with.
We have a map full of thousands.
So, speaking of the map, everybody, Susie G20, she's watching with us on YouTube, and she wants to know what the count of the Lost Speedways on the map is. Where does it stand right now? We're getting a lot of people asking that.
Like how many?
How many are on the map?
I think we're up to. We don't really share our map, so to say, but I think.
And by really not share, he means he will never share it, nor would we want him to at this point.
Now, remember, Mike. Remember when you asked me to send you it? Do you remember that?
I remember I had to sign a waiver. I had to basically, lock my
poor
kid.
Mike.
Yeah.
Poor Mike calls me, emails me. He's like, "Can you send me the map?" And I'm like, "No."
No, I ain't seen your map. But I'm trying to write this show, the show that you're in. No, it's all right. You don't get the map.
You're not getting it. But
he eventually relented. I was relentless, and he finally gave in.
Yeah, I gave in. But so I think we are up to, let's see, U.S. Lost Ovals. See, the thing is, our map's also something. Dale had his map, and then I had a map that I was doing with my friend Kyle Rizak, who's from Canada, like BC, like Vancouver, and my a fellow historian. Bobby Marcos, who's actually on the Jungle Park episode.
Yep.
And we work our butt off on this map. So United States alone, we have 1,936. Wow. We've got probably 50, 60 international ovals. Canada, we have 712 right now.
So this is now over 2,000.
We're well over 2,000 here. So
can you turn that around and without giving away any type of stuff?
Yeah, I could hide the address, but if you see that, if you want to zoom in there and see that, that'll give you a gravity moment right there, folks. This is something that Kyle Rizak and Bobby and me have been working on for years, and Dale has helped us too, mapping locations. But if you look at all those dots, those are all Lost Speedways. Many of them that have remains, some of them that are neighborhoods, some of them that are, strip malls.
That's the good point. And I'm glad you actually said that, because that doesn't mean those are the tracks that we have to consider based off the criteria.
Well, those are the master list.
This is the master list that we would have pulled from and said, okay, which of these 2,500 tracks could we consider for possibly our show?
Yeah.
And so, but this was that's no crap, man. It's no lie. We literally used his map as the starting point, and then whittled down from that. So that's a great question. Is
thank
there any
Yeah,
others?
now there's a bunch of map envy comments going on. In
Oh,
this
map
group. Yeah,
envy.
everybody's got map envy.
Well, hey, you know what? I want to say something. I remember a point that Dale Jr. made early on before we ever taped the first episode, and we were really just trying to kind of nail down the identity. And we were talking about what is our mission here? What is our goal with Lost Speedways? And Dale said something. He's like, it's to be very clear, it's not to go get these things back into service, right? It's not like these things are well past that point. They're past the point of no return. But his point was, I want to, inspire other Matthews and other Dale Juniors and people that would at least find this
to be
interesting
advocates
enough
of history,
to
too.
Yes.
Because it's not just advocating for tracks and saying we want to bring a place back. It's we want people to be advocates for history, and it isn't just racetracks. If you have a passion for minor league ball fields, there's so many stories that are untold, or drive-in theaters across America. There's so many little pockets of culture in this country that are unexplored, that are that are not unearthed. Whether it be physically, seen or celebrated, or their stories be told, and we see that because we're racers.
Yeah.
But I see that beyond that, just as a history and nostalgia lover.
If watching the show made people, even if they didn't drive them to the depths of where you have taken this passion, just recognizing it, the other thing about it is we have an episode where people are driving on an old speedway that Fireball Roberts and Joe Weatherly and Richard Petty, they drove on this track, and people drive on it today. People are driving on it right now, and they have no idea that they are on the same ground where Petty and Weatherly and Fireball Roberts and Ned Jarrett, Fred Lorenzen, all these people, this is where they raced. At least try to just recognize it, right?
Yeah.
At least pay attention. That's I loved DBC this week because Crush Boy 31 was on the show.
Yeah, Bernard
right?
Pollard.
Bernard Pollard. And he said something
Former
that was
NFL player.
so compelling to me. And it was like when he saw NASCAR and he saw it through seeing Bubba Wallace on CNN, it made him want to learn more. It made him want to become a student of the game. Yeah. And that's what you've been for the last decade. You and Dale have become students of this. You don't have a history major.
No.
You don't.
And I'm not a historian.
And you're not out, excavating,
Fossil.
Right. But you do appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you do want to see it. And you can preserve stuff in ways that don't have to be directly affiliated with it. You can preserve it just through, you're preserving 2,000 plus tracks just in remembering it through a map.
Sometimes all you got to do is have a discussion too. Look at this conversation right here, because we just learned that your second cousin was a racer at Birmingham International Raceway. That story, if we didn't talk about that, would it be out there? Would it be known? You'd just be the guy on the download, or Dale's like right-hand man or whatever, but now there's a different layer. It's like an onion. We've all got these layers,
So that was something that I was thinking about. Is there anything else right now that we want to touch?
So we got a bunch of questions.
Let's tackle
a few on like the more technical side. Like Abby is asking, how did you guys track down the historians in each episode? Love that you gave the chance for people to tell their story. So kind of talk about how you found.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. One or two of the historians I had heard of. Basically, it was more just reaching out and looking up things on the internet, finding out the people that raced there, and asking around. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I had to cold call from the office that I'd never met before and tell them, hey, I'm this guy that you don't know and you've never heard of, but we got this project that I can't tell you about yet that we want to do, and it's about this track, and I kind of heard that you have a collection and you have some history, and boom, next thing you know, wow, these people are just as passionate as I am maybe about Islip, or you are about Rickwood Field. And all of a sudden, you're in an hour-long conversation, and you're best buddies with these people, and you're finding out a wealth of information, and then you're selective of, you might talk to 30 people, but then you kind of got to narrow
Sure.
it down.
That's a great question.
Yeah, awesome question.
And Aaron A wants to know how long did filming take? So just kind of take us through behind the scenes.
How long?
Take care of that one, Mike.
Take us behind the scenes.
I'll tell you the plan, and then I'll tell you what happened.
What happened was
a pandemic. What the plan was not a pandemic.
Yeah.
The plan was for us to shoot. It was an ambitious schedule.
Oh, yeah.
It was an ambitious schedule because I wanted to get Matthew back for the Dale Jr. download when we started back the new season, which was middle of February.
Yeah.
So we went and shot.
Oh, hold on. We have to talk about the time frame that we literally got told, green light.
Well,
we're going
okay,
here.
that's a good point.
Green light, we're going here. Hey, green light. Here's our. Let's discuss the episodes, and then we decide what our episodes were.
Yeah.
And we literally had a few weeks of prep. For the first.
We spent October trying to get our tracks. Micah was our director on this and our project manager. So Micah, if I'm misspeaking, correct me here. Feel free to speak up. I think we spent October. Getting our tracks and also some alternates. I spent November writing out the episode. We needed to have a storybook. We needed to have stuff. We needed to have an outline. We needed to have. So we spent, meanwhile, researching the whole time. That was November. December, a lot of the same. Again, a lot of this was, this is our off season, so to speak. So, we're on holidays and stuff. I don't know about y'all,
Christmas.
but I feel like, we were working, wherever we were on Thanksgiving and Christmas, we were all sort of working on it. Also, kind of just getting the game plan, because when we got back from Christmas, I think we shot the first episode the first week of January.
Yeah, it was like January 8th or something.
And so the ambitious schedule was that we were going to shoot everything except
one or
two episodes. We were going to shoot all in January in the beginning of February. And I was going to try to get Matthew back. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. We were going to shoot a majority of the stuff before the download started. And then we were going to shoot 3 episodes after the first several weeks of the download. We'd get our podcast season going. And then we would go, I think you guys went and hit the road, did Jungle Park, Hinchliff. There was one other one, I think. No, it was those, and it was supposed to be another one. Our other episode didn't. That's when the pandemic. All of a sudden, next thing I know, we find ourselves in our own houses, and can't go.
Well,
anywhere.
The craziest part about that is, okay, I'm going to fast forward you, and this is the insider. We always say insider baseball. That's you use that term all the time in TV lingo. That's kind of inside knowledge stuff. So we'll let you behind the curtain here a little. The craziest part was that we got all these episodes shot, and then this pandemic hits, and we literally had to work from home.
Yeah.
To put together a TV show.
Most of this show,
it's incredible.
I would say when you look down to it, 50% of this show was built. At least 50% of this show was built from our houses, and not together. I mean, it would all have been, Dustin, Dustin Lee, who edited this thing, and I can't say enough about Dustin. My gosh, man,
creativity.
The dude is a workhorse, but he had to edit these from his home computer, and nothing about that was convenient. But the reason why we don't want to spend too much complaining about it is everybody's been inconvenienced during this thing.
Yes.
We were no exception. The one thing I will say is we were determined to deliver this project to Peacock in spite of the pandemic. We had to go back and do some rewriting. We had to go do some figuring out. We had to go, make a couple plans here.
Work around the clock.
And we worked some ridiculous hours. But I'll get back to that. To the question is, the shoot schedule prolonged well past our plan, because really Matthew just got back to the download full time just in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I was trying to have him done by February. That ought to tell you. That ought to tell you a little something about how much that got prolonged. But you know what? Everybody, everybody
Who
was
wasn't getting
inconvenienced by that.
inconvenienced? Who wasn't?
Yeah, and you know what?
Micah, our director, is sitting there working during this pandemic, and his wife had to work, and he's got a baby in the same room as him. He's got to be on meetings and hit mute and try to juggle, unbelievable.
So, that was the shoot schedule, and if we had it to do over again, I'm sure we'd plan a little better.
All right. Which was your favorite episode to create?
You first, Mike.
Favorite episode?
Favorite episode. This is going to be a good one. I have not asked you this.
I don't even
good.
know his. I would almost like to go around the room.
Leah, what was you watched them? What was your favorite?
Yeah, so I haven't had a chance to watch. I saw them before they were completely done.
Oh, the draft cuts.
The only one that I have watched since it launched on Peacock was the final one.
Okay.
Because I saw some tweets and I was like, "What are they talking about? Like Kelly Earnhardt in a fight at Dale's racetrack? What are we talking about?" So I went and watched that one, which is really good. But the Jungle Park one, I just loved. Which I'm from the Midwest, so it kind of like that
Illinois girl.
Yeah, so that it just kind of hit home for me, and it was awesome.
All right, Mike.
My favorite is Asheville because something happens in that episode that was not expected, and Micah and I were behind the camera. And for those that have seen the Asheville episode, you'll know what I'm talking about. And hopefully, if you haven't seen it, I'm not giving away too much. But a conversation takes place amongst a couple of race car drivers, just about an incident that happened 35 years ago that they should have talked about 35 years ago. And as it turns out, because they're race car drivers, they ain't said nothing to each other. And here it is, they're ironing it out while our cameras are rolling. Okay?
It was incredible.
It was an amazing moment that I thought speaks to a larger dynamic about how we relate to each other. And especially in racing. And I always want to make fun of race car drivers, and Dale Jr. is no different. Admittedly, is that they really think that after they've been in a confrontation or so, that texting on a Monday or Tuesday suffices an apology. In their world, it does. But to think that literally puts it behind them, text messages aren't supposed to be able to convey that type of sincerity. And it doesn't, by the way. Only, face-to-face conversations, and that's really the only method in which you would do that for it to be effective.
Yeah.
And here it is that was playing out in our Asheville episode. And so I can't think of another moment. I've got a lot of good favorite moments, but as far as my favorite episode, Leah, Asheville is that for me because of that.
I have a
What
hard
about you,
time
Matthew?
narrowing it down between Hinchliffe and Hinchliffe and Jungle Park. And that was surprising to me because I didn't grow up a midget, open wheel, big car, sprint car fan. I grew up open wheels with NASCAR style modifieds. So I kind of thought Okanichi or some of these other ones that had more of a NASCAR centric might be, or short track centric would like Asheville would be my favorite. But finding out about the deep history dating back to the 30s and 40s and the midget boom in the 40s, after World War II when they came back from war, was so captivating to me, and the characters that raced those style cars were almost mythical. We talk about characters these days, and you have Kyle Busch out there, and you have Joey Logano, or you have these Clinton Boyer. There's something different about the mindset of a racer in that period of time that came back from war and survived and had this fearless, absolutely fearless demeanor about them and careless, almost devil-may-care attitude that was so romantic and drew people to them as heroes. And we were able to uncover some of those stories and personalities. And I love learning about this stuff. I'm not a historian. I'm a history fan. So I got to learn about D. Turan.
D. Turan.
Who was
what
the
an
most
amazing character.
unbelievable character I've ever heard about.
Yeah.
And like things like that just blew me away. And it even for all the prep work we did for this show, all of us in this room, that just blew me. Some of those things blew me away about those 2 episodes.
Is there a microphone that Dustin and Micah can pipe into, or no? Or do you just want to talk out loud?
I can probably pick them up on that one, or you guys can.
Well, Dustin, why don't y'all
Dustin, come on over here.
Everybody needs to see Dustin.
You hop on Leah's mic, yeah.
I want you guys. This is Dustin Lee.
Dustin Lee is our editor, and Dustin was one of the creative geniuses behind this project.
Hey, folks. Honestly, for me, I think it's really hard to choose, obviously. But for me, this is kind of a nerdy decision. But this goes into sound design.
He's going to say Augusta.
No. Augusta was
Augusta
was one of my favorites. But I think when we moved into Hinchliff, it kind of unlocked this ability to use sound design from that era, and to be able to tell the story and to be able to use things from that era to tell the story were probably one of the most interesting things for me. Besides that, I think Asheville has one of the greatest stories of like this whole season.
Yeah.
So those are my 2 favorites.
Awesome. Good
Micah,
ones.
let's get you real quick.
Micah
here's the thing. Dirty Mo, man, we're a family here. So let's get – I love the fact that y'all can hear from not just me.
These are the guys that bring
Made it
you –
happen.
these are the same guys that bring you the Dale Jr. Download
Yes.
every week, bring you Door Bumper Clear every week. I mean, this is the same group of guys that did this TV show.
Director's cut here. Micah Caldwell, what was your favorite episode, buddy?
Hey, guys. I'm gonna have to say for me, Augusta, learning about a hidden road course of that size. And Matthew, I'm gonna turn it to you to talk a little bit about Harvey. For people who hadn't seen the episode, one of our hosts for that episode is Harvey. So explain a little bit about what he was going through.
Oh, geez.
And how he helped us out.
So here we go. We find
this
this massive road course, right, that Mike is talking about, and was one of the biggest motorsports complexes in the world at its time, and then it's gone, and people don't even realize it's there, and we go and discover this place. But in the process, you talked about they were asking about the historians before. Mm-hmm. So I find this guy Harvey Tolleson, and Harvey's an interesting cat. You know, he's kind of a little quiet on the phone, but I could tell, I mean, he really has a passion. So I meet him. And the first day we meet, we realize, even though our shoot's the next day, we don't have the keys to get in certain gates. And this guy's not panicked at all. I'm sitting there at lunch with him, and I got the dang sweats, and I'm like shaking, and my anxiety is going like through the roof, like DEFCON red. And we go to the racetrack, this guy's, not a big deal. Yeah, they might not be able to get us the keys till Monday. And I'm like,
God, I didn't know this. This is fascinating. I would have thanked y'all for not telling me.
Then we go driving on this golf cart to try to find a way around these things, and we literally get freaking stuck in the woods. And then Harvey goes walking off like 60 yards away. He's exploring. I'm trying to get this golf cart out. Second time, the first time of 2, we got stuck that week with a golf cart. And I'm like, this guy, he's so laid back. I'm like, Harvey, come help. I find out in getting to know him through this weekend what a good person he is and what a resilient human being he is and what a blessing our whole crew. Micah, you could talk to this too. This whole crew at the end of it loved Harvey because here's this guy that I think it was 9 years previous had been given like a year to live.
Wow.
And he's had bouts with cancer, and he had just finished a chemo treatment.
Wow.
The morning before you see him, that shoot day that he's on that Lost Speedways episode, he just finished a treatment, a radiation, I think it was, treatment or whatever, and was like, yeah, I'm going to be about an hour late today because I got my treatments. And you want to talk about a badass. Here's a guy that was facing death. I mean, told he's got a certain amount of time to live, and 9 years later, he's got this attitude where he's like, yeah, that's not going to bother me that we can't get into that gate because he's beaten life. He's done it. And what an inspiration. I don't mean to sound cheesy, but like all of us were inspired by him once we started behind the camera telling each other like, hey, yeah, this guy Harvey, and everybody just loved him.
That's amazing. That reminds me also, if we're going to carry that out a little bit, Billy Scott at
Great,
Metrolina is an old racer that raced with Ralph Earnhardt, friends with Ralph Earnhardt, is
Friends
in the
with
Metrolina
Dale.
episode. You know, his wife was battling at the time.
Yeah.
And
we've lost her since.
and we have lost her since. And so it meant a lot to us that Billy made a point to come there, which was probably an hour or so drive for him,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't close by. So, you know, there was a lot of people that sacrificed to make this
Yes.
show happen. And it's
We had a guy drive, I think, from Michigan to Indiana for Tom Williamson, the historian in that episode.
Man.
Because he wrote a book about Jungle Park,
Right.
and this guy is an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I want to be a part of this. And then he was supposed to just spend that day and do the interview, and we got him a hotel room for that night, right? And the next day, he's back at the track with us. And I'm like, oh, hey, man, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. I came to hang out. I'm like, oh, cool. Hang out all you want, man. There's some drinks in there. And then it was like, by the end of the day, he's still there. He just wanted to be a part of it, and he wanted to help us, and he wanted to make sure if we had a question about the track that he
Man,
would-
that's fantastic.
Great. You meet these people, and it's just like racing. You go into any pit area in America, and you just meet good people.
Again, this is us sort of doing a review of the experience right now, and we're just doing it with you. So I hope
Hope you guys enjoy
I hope that's not becoming boring to you, but that's just one of the things we're doing right now.
I got a good question.
All right,
Okay.
Leah.
Well, actually, Kyle Dawson has a good question. Which episode's track would have the biggest impact on motorsports today if it hadn't been lost?
Ooh,
Well, it's got to be Augusta, right?
it would have to be Augusta. Okanichi, that's a great point, because if the tragic ending to Okanichi, which if you watch the episode, you will understand this, what might have been at Okanichi could have changed the course of NASCAR history forever.
Yeah.
Augusta might have had a bigger impact on the sport as a whole, because here you had this complex that was, you could fit Brave Stadium and the where the Masters is, and all these things inside this massive motorsports complex that housed all these different racing venues. So maybe that would have had a Augusta, but I think NASCAR
Well-
is such a big part of the sport that I think you're right, Dustin. Okanichi could have changed the course of NASCAR and been the epicenter, maybe more than Charlotte.
I say Augusta because if they're under the idea that if their plans had played out, that was going to be the racing capital of the world right there. If their vision
True.
had played out,
Yep.
They already had the half-mile track. They had the drag strip. They had. By the way, that's not unique. I mean, there's certainly a lot of places that have a drag strip and things, but nobody has a 3-mile road course.
And they had plans to build a tri-oval
Right.
thing,
So
1.5 mile oval
I mean,
there too.
they
Never
had big
happened.
plans, and I think that without giving away the whole episode, that there's obviously tragedy built into that certainly would have impacted the future of that track. So that would be my answer. Yeah, that would be my answer. That's a good question.
We got a question that came in actually on Twitter from Kathy Kamek. How many old bottles did you and Dale Jr. acquire? And what was the one you found buried in the ground? I was out there at Metrolina the day that you guys found the visor tear off. And so that made me think, what all did you guys, what were some of the cooler things you guys found?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. And most of the stuff that we found, we left there. I've got this weird thing. It's just me personally, where I look at Lost Speedways as a gravesite in terms of respecting the property. And that's been my biggest worry over the years of people that explore Lost Speedways just on their own, is just to be respectful. Don't steal things from them. Don't
Even if it's trash or stuff like that.
There's so many vandals out there and people that destroy things, and we don't need to do that. I mean, I look at them much like I'd look at visiting a gravesite. But we did find some things that were incredible. We were at Okanichi and we found those bottles, and one of the bottles we found was dated 1968. And of course, Dale was the one that found it. Dale is like Magellan, man. Seriously. I've got all this experience exploring Lost Speedways, and here this guy has zero experience. He's a map guy. Dale Jr. ain't going out by himself, traipsing through woods and stuff, getting stickers all over. He is now, but here's this rookie explorer who's going through there, and this guy, every time he was on an episode, oh, look at that right there. How did I walk by the jar buried at Okanichi and not see it. Like, I had walked through that turn right before we went and explored it real quick while we were getting set up. I didn't see it. We go walking through there a few minutes later, and there's Dale Earnhardt Jr. What's that? Find a jar, like, just sticking out, just a little edge of it sticking out of the banking of the dirt in turn one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he found that bottle in perfect Dale Jr. fashion. We're looking at the bottle, and he's like, oh, and then he kind of fades off a little bit, and we're like, what is he doing? He's got his phone out. And all of a sudden, he's like, well, they say the date on bottles on the back, you know, you can look underneath them, and we found that the bottle was from 1968, the year the last race at Okanichi. That's incredible.
So that bottle's
been sitting there, you know, for all those years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I like the things that I really like the Explorer you guys did at Jungle Park.
Oh yeah.
Because you had the push truck.
That roller, that
and
giant
that big
roller.
concrete roller. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
And there was I thought that there was a good educational point to that, and that we used in that episode. But anyways, I thought the Explorer, you know, every track had a fascinating Explorer and a find. Augusta had the big letters. But I'll say this on those Explorers, you're talking about the favorite part Dale Jr. had of that this whole experience is that he was preaching to Micah to build more time for him to go dig around and explore racetracks. So that was one of the things that we made sure we had plenty of time for, because that was what Dale loved to do. But good question there. Do you got another one? Because I got questions too.
Oh yeah.
No, it's all right. But go ahead. Let's let people ask.
Schultz and I have a whole Google Doc here going. Trailing Rail was watching on YouTube. He asked if there's if there's only closed circuits in the plans for the future, or will drag strips find their way?
I would love that to be the case.
Ooh, well, there's a drag strip locally here. I'm not going to say which one that I'm going to explore here in the next few weeks.
Z-Max?
No, Z-Max is alive and kicking, thank God. But one of the episodes Augusta actually had, that was our most diverse episode, because unplanned, we ended up exploring a drag strip. So I definitely invite you, if you haven't seen that episode and you do love drag racing, man. That had an element of drag racing in it.
That
it's a good question, though.
It is a good question. To answer it again,
why not?
We absolutely opened all kinds of racetracks.
I'm no oval track snob. I mean, if it's a racetrack, if it's a race car, it could have 2 wheels, 4 wheels. It could be a tricycle. I don't care.
Right. It doesn't. NASCAR never had to be there.
Nope. As a matter of fact, in our early meetings, I remember there being suggestions, and we get this all the time. When are you going to do North Wilkesboro? When are you going to do Rockingham? All these places that are the most documented Lost Speedways, the most well-documented, the most famous ones. And Dale, this was so cool, was like, I don't necessarily want to go do those. Yeah. I like the idea of Jungle Park. I like the idea of Hinchliffe because I don't know about that.
Right.
When he saw Hinchliffe from above on our map and we zoom in on it, it's like, whoa. Like, we want to go there.
Yeah. So that's a good point. That was the other criteria. I forgot to actually mention that at the top of this, is that there's some obvious tracks that are Lost Speedways that everybody knows about, and you just mentioned them. We did want to stay away from those. I mean, those stories aren't
we want to tell stuff
new.
that people don't know.
What was your favorite part that didn't make an episode? Like, didn't actually make it into the show? Let's tell a story. You pick one, I got one.
I've been so eager to say mine. I've been so eager to get it out.
So this is
Can I tell the leaper one?
You tell whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay.
There's not a chance that you and I will ever think exactly alike on anything.
No,
so
you're not.
I don't worry about you taking my answer.
Okay.
There's never going to happen.
I don't have the article on me. I wish I did. So Jungle Park, a story that we didn't get to fully tell. And we didn't really uncover the fullness of this story until, afterwards. And it didn't make the cut. But there's so many stories that didn't make the cut that are incredible.
And Matthew would get so mad at me and Dustin.
Get so mad.
He'd be like, how can you take the leaper story out? And I mean,
we had a conversation at Dale's property, sitting by the gas pumps, and I'm like sitting there selling him like I'm a car salesman.
And I'm like,
I need this, please.
I said, it didn't make the cut. I mean, whatever the reason was.
Meanwhile, folks, these episodes could have been an hour long.
They could have been 2 hours long.
They could have been
Oh
long.
my God. But okay, so let me
all
tell
right,
you,
go
the
ahead,
fans
tell
are
the
probably
episode.
sitting there going, what the hell is he talking about? So Jungle Park, there was this gentleman, there was a lot of, if you watch the episode, it's a very dark episode. It's got a lot of, it's very dark. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of mystery. 44 years of my life in racing, I've never heard anything like this. There's this guy named Edward Leeper who dies in warm-ups in a big car, which is a sprint car, basically, that they'd race at Indianapolis back in the day. So he goes out there during warm-ups, and he goes down the front stretch, full bore, like in the hot laps, and he just never lifts. And he just goes sailing off the dirt banking into the trees and suffers a gruesome death. And the obituaries are out, all this different stuff. And there was a local newspaper that reported, and this was in Tom Williams' book, The Ghost of Jungle Park, where I first discovered this fact. And his book is incredible. So a great follow-up if you're a Lost Speedways fan and you love the Jungle Park episode. I'm not saying this as an advertisement, but he's a great person, and I've never seen such an incredibly detailed book. So anyway, this Edward Leeper crashes off the banking, dies in this gruesome death. A small-town newspaper had a quote from his cousin, and it said, I'm going to paraphrase slightly here, that Leeper said the morning of the race to his cousin, it would bring me great pleasure if I could go to Jungle Park and end it all today.
Mm-hmm. If you'd have just said that, we would have put it in the episode.
That's funny. That's you're probably following me at home, I hope. Possible suicide? Possible?
Definite.
Never a mystery.
No.
Not a mystery that's ever been solved.
It was before the race even went green.
Yes. And then I was able to later, I was so intrigued by this that I was going down all these rabbit holes. The pandemic hits, so you can't physically go to libraries. You can't send my buddy Bobby Marcos to the library in Indiana. They're not responding, the library people. I finally get one eager librarian person on the internet, and they help me, and we found the article. We found the article that had the cousin's quote. And it's still, to this day, an unsolved mystery. And I've never, ever heard a story like that in all my years of being in racing. What was yours that didn't make the show? And
I've got two. One of them. One of them.
come on now! I've got 20.
Well, one of them was conceptual. One was actually story. Like I tweeted about this the other day in my long thread, and that was the Richard Petty story of Okanichi dropping his wife off at the hospital to deliver a baby. He went to race, of course, and that blows my mind that anybody could actually get away with that if they're married.
What would your wife do?
Oh God! I mean, she'd tell me, "Don't come back." But
what's the kicker though? He said he didn't have enough money to.
Yeah, he had to go race. Yeah.
So
this
was their third child. Petty's telling this story. He drops them off at the hospital. He goes to Okanichi. He remembers more about what happened in the race. He didn't do well. But these guys can tell you what kind of shock they would have run or what kind of brakes, whatever. Said he finished, 9th, 10th, something like that. Goes back to the hospital, and his wife, Linda, is super angry at him and wouldn't tell him the sex of the baby. It's like she's delivered the baby now. And so now Richard, who I don't know if he was still in fire suit or what. I like to envision that he is.
In a dirty fire suit.
I love that.
Is he still chewing on the rag?
That imagery, man. I just hope that that's the case. And so, but she won't tell him, so she says to go down to the nursery and find out yourself. Well, if it's a boy or a girl. So he waddles them down to the nursery, and then like a few minutes later, he peeps his head back into the door and says, "Which one of them's ours? I can't tell. They all look the same." And so we were just cracking up at that, and just we're like, "Wow!" And Dale Jr. was like, "What?" And everybody couldn't believe that.
That's a perfect example, though, of like, are you kidding me?
Right.
That didn't make the episode, but that's how good some of the stories are in the episode.
The other thing I'll say, one of my favorite things that didn't make the episode was conceptual, and that was Okanichi, when we started,
I know where you're going.
when we started, when we went there, the theme of this was Matthew told us it was haunted.
Well,
Hold up. I'm telling the story. Matthew had informed us to the point that I have written it into the storybook. Like I've said, this is the episode. This is going to be about haunted racetracks. And the word on the street was that if you went out there at night,
our buddy Frank Craig,
if you went out there at night, you could hear the race cars going around the racetrack. Okay, you could hear them, the actual race cars at Okanichi. And so, dang it, we sure were going to check and find out.
Hell yeah. Even Dale Jr. stayed late.
And so we stayed to nighttime.
We were like
Hey,
ghost
I didn't
hunters.
know this.
Like flashlights.
And I got to be honest with you, man. This footage didn't have a chance of making the episode because
No, it
hold
did
up,
have a
stop
chance.
it.
Oh.
Dale Jr. could not have been less interested because and so you got this guy with
He loved the device, though, the ghost hunter device. He thought it was cool.
What was his name again?
Frank Craig, man.
Frank Craig is out there with this
I
device.
feel so bad. He's
and
such a good person.
I'm not saying he's not a good person. I'm saying this is just, I'm telling the story as one of my favorite things. So he's got like a headset on.
Here, this is gonna be.
And he's talking. He's like, and he's playing with the knobs. And he says, "If you can hear us, we're not here to harm you."
Shut up.
And he's talking, and he's like, and he's talking to the ghost. If you'd have panned a shot to Dale Jr., it was like, and then the guy's like, we're here as a friend. We just want to talk. And he looked at his little meter, and it's nothing, right?
Oh, come
now,
on.
now hold up. I'm sitting back there
love
with
this
Micah.
part.
I'm sitting there back with Micah, and I'm like, I hear something. I hear it. I could hear engines. I could hear cars. No lie. I could hear them. But they were coming from the highway. That's the problem. They weren't coming from the racetrack. They were coming from the highway. Because you heard this truck.
Jake break.
Shoot this ghost. But, and I'm like, man, is
Wait,
that.
wait, hold on.
Does
You
that
were
go
with
for-
us. It wasn't spooky out there? You didn't feel something? I didn't hear something, but you didn't feel it?
Well, look, we
on.
were
Be
in the
honest.
woods at night. I mean, it felt like Blair Witch Project at the moment, but not because there was any ghost. It's because we were in the woods at night. But I remember finally Dale Jr. was like, "I'm hungry. Let's go get some dinner." And so that was the end of our ghost hunting expedition. So I'll say this though, I love that because I would not have wanted us, if we are who we say we are, I would not have wanted us to hear a rumor that this could be potentially haunted and us not go at least go settle that and go
At least
figure it
try.
out.
We tried to set Dale up.
We
by
tried.
fabricating sticks and noise.
Oh, yeah. You guys in the background at the end threw a stick out there to see if he could get Dale to react. No, nothing.
He was hungry.
We ain't going to fake it.
Dale was hungry. The only thing he heard was a dinner bell.
He hurt his stomach. Go ahead, Leah.
This question came in earlier this week on Twitter from Zach Albright. He was asking where the Bobby Keck car came from and said that I'm from Graham, Alamance County. I'd never heard of his career. It was so cool to learn about that.
Yeah, Bobby Keck's car came from his son, has restored that car, an old Ford. And I was in touch with Frank Craig, ghost hunter, but he's more than that. He's a historian.
Yeah.
And their group actually helped preserve that place. But he was like, well, Bobby's son has this car, from that ran during that period. And there's pictures of it and everything at Okanichi. And we just decided, hey, let's do this. Let's get this car in. But the coolest part about that story, that's where we got the car from. It's a almost fully restored car. He's still got a little work to do on it. But the cool part was Dale Jr. didn't have any damn clue.
Right.
And we freaking coordinated this thing with our production coordinator, everybody, to shift Dale over here, get the car towed in and pushed all the way back to turn number 4, get Dale to lunch while all this stuff is going on. And then after lunch, we're going to go back to that sign that we had discovered. And Dale's like, well, we already did that. I'm like, oh, no, we needed a second angle and do all this stuff. And we're looking at the sign, and Micah gave the cue to, like, start that car up. And you see Dale, I think, in the episode go like, what's that?
Yeah.
None of that was script. Nothing was like so many. Let's just be honest. Reality shows, I watch them all the time. A lot of it's scripted. We were like, no, we're going to surprise Dale and, and make this legit. And he was surprised.
That's true. That's good. Was there anything? I also want to keep the questions coming, but also if there's anybody that has a speedway that they want to mention.
So this is what I just did. Let me clue you in what's going on back here. So I just posted in the live chat, tell us your local Lost Speedways and let's test Matthew's knowledge of his map he showed us earlier.
Great idea.
All right. So
can I use the map?
You can. I mean, if you need to.
Cheaters cheat.
Cheaters
cheat. All right.
Gonna race.
Craig Road Speedway.
Yes.
Where is it?
Craig Road Speedway.
Anybody can say
hold
yes.
Hold on.
I think I know this.
Let me in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yep.
Mark Martin has raced there. An oval track that the property is still there. It's flattened. There's some gas stations, I think, across the street, and there's like a fence around it, but there's really nothing tangible there except for like when you look at Google Earth and you look at the Craig Road Speedway from above, you see the actual land where the track was. There's nothing there, though.
Okay, good.
Meadowdale Raceway?
Meadowdale Raceway is a road course. Is it Illinois? I think it might be Illinois.
Mark, tell
like
us.
That. But it's a road course, and it's huge, and it's beautiful. They have this gorgeous water tower.
It's still there?
And it is still there, and it's so gorgeous. And it's definitely a place that's on my list. I don't know if it'll hey, we want a season 2, folks. And seriously.
So does everyone.
I'm not going to lie.
Here.
I want a dang season 2 of this show because there's so many stories to tell and so many things to explore. And that's a perfect example of, man, if we get a season 5 or 6 or 3 or, whatever, so that's the place that's on my list.
I anticipate or I expect
this is awesome.
Have an FAQ.
I got a ton.
You got a ton?
And I want to get back to that real quick. I do want to say we do get a lot of questions about when is a season 2 happening.
Yeah.
Listen, season 2 depends solely on you. All right.
Yeah.
All right. This is officially not in our control.
This is not a telethon
Season
here.
2 depends on if you go to Peacock and watch this dang show.
If you love history,
if the return of investment is there, then they will probably want us to do a season 2. We are ready to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Dillner, you were correct. Meadowdale is in Carpentersville, Illinois.
And who asked that question?
2 for 2. I guarantee I won't be 3 for 3.
So that's a great one.
Dorsey Speedway.
What'd I tell you? I wouldn't be Dorney?
Dorsey.
Oh, I was thinking Dorney Park Speedway.
Dorsey.
In Pennsylvania. No.
It's in Maryland.
In Maryland. I probably have it on the map. Let's just say this. I am not the sole keeper of this map. Let me tell you, if you think I have knowledge, the map knowledge of my buddies, like I said before, I've got this OG, I call it like our OG, like Lost Speedways map kind of core, man. And this kid from Canada that he was on my Lost Speedways page, and we started talking. I thought he was really cool, and he shared me a map, and I started adding locations, and next thing you know, we actually became friends. Bobby Marcos. These are the OG guys that I've known that Dale's just getting to know here.
But Bobby Marcos isn't the Canadian guy.
No, Bobby Marcos is from Indiana, it's Bobby, me, and Kyle Rizak, and now Dale that are in on this map deal.
So
these guys are like so incredible. They have found speedways that we never even knew existed. The godfather of speedway kind of history, Alan E. Brown, has this thing that I call the Racetrack Bible. Basically, America's Speedways, Past and Present. Incredible book of an encyclopedia of just like a directory of tracks in America. Mm-hmm. And we study that book, and it's kind of nerdy. But
not kinda.
We found tracks that were not even in that book. And Alan E. Brown is he's the godfather. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that I wouldn't know it, but I guarantee it's on the map.
All right.
All right. Warsaw Fairgrounds?
Warsaw Fairgrounds in Wisconsin, yes. So I know that track. I know a little bit more about Warsaw because of the Wimmer family, like Chris Wimmer and Scott Wimmer that raced in ASA. That's kind of their neck of the woods up there. So don't have a great knowledge of the track, but yes.
Droids13 is saying, my mom is saying there was a raceway on 86th Street in Brooklyn, New York. You know anything about that?
Brooklyn, New York.
86th Street.
They might have been.
Wow.
I know in the Bronx, this is cool. Okay, this is cool. There was the Armory, the Bronx Armory in New York that raced midget car racing. And finding out, if you want to have a good time finding out some things about Lost Speedways, maybe ones that we wouldn't have on the show because there's nothing to explore, go look up. After you're done on this chat video, if you're still watching, Nutley Velodrome.
What is it?
The Nutley Velodrome in New Jersey. Nutley, N-U-T, like I'm a nut, Lee, L-E-Y. And it is one of the most insane racetracks that ever existed. The banking, I believe, was like 50 degrees.
50 degrees?
And they're racing midget cars on this thing. And it actually had a incredibly tragic ending where a gentleman crashed into the catch fence and was severed. And supposedly his car owner actually picked up the helmet unbeknownst to him what was in it. And it was I believe there was about 5,000 to 8,000 spectators there that night that witnessed this gruesome death. And the New Jersey police were very involved, and they still are, in motorsports and managing these facilities, and they shut the place down.
Oh, yeah. New Jersey, when Englishtown.
Yes.
The
Englishtown
NHRA didn't have.
Another Lost Speedway.
Another Lost Speedway. NHRA didn't have any jurisdiction on. The state police ran the security at the racetrack. Like,
yes.
If you're not supposed to be on the starting line, the state police are escorting you. That was wild.
It's incredible.
Anyway, Jackson International Speedway.
Jackson International in Michigan or Jackson International in Mississippi?
I think this is Mississippi.
Yes, because Jackson Speedway is in Michigan.
Now, we talked about this.
Yes, well, actually, we talked about the one in Michigan more. The one in Michigan is just a really interesting explore. But the one in Mississippi, yes, we have that track mapped. We have both of those tracks mapped.
It was called something else too, right? Is Jackson, Mississippi, is it not? It was always Jackson International?
So. Yeah. I might be wrong on that.
So Dave Krause from Iowa, he wants to know if there are any tracks in Iowa that you know of.
Oh, geez, we have a ton of
Iowa.
Interesting. I mean, give me another one while I check it out.
Okay. How about Airbase Speedway?
Yes, Airbase Speedway is an interesting speedway. Airbase Speedway, there's a video out there. Just like us, we're not the only people that are interested in lost speedways or ghost tracks, abandoned racetracks. There's some Facebook groups out there, retired race cars and abandoned speedways, that I'm a fan of. I'm on that group all the time. I'm part of the group. And I forgot the name of the guy who did the video on Airbase, but there was a little video done on YouTube about Airbase, and it was really cool to learn.
Where is this?
Airbase would be in North Carolina.
What?
And, yeah.
Really?
But it's a lost speedway that did it exist or did it not? There's some question. All I'll say is there's some question to whether it really did exist or it really was a different speedway. But wow. Go ahead, Leah.
Hartsville Speedway.
Hartsville, Alabama.
South Carolina.
Oh, Hartsville Speedway in South Carolina. Yeah, it was like a mini Darlington.
Oh.
That's right. Yes.
Ileana.
Ileana Speedway. Stand by. I can't get my password in here because I keep on.
He's trying to do two things at once.
I can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time, folks. I'm not good at it. Ask my wife; she'll tell you that. And I got the password wrong. Anyway, Ileana Speedway.
He's about to get locked out of his own account.
Yeah, Ileana Speedway. It was an incredible place in Illinois. Dick Trickle, Joe Shear, some Refner, some of the greatest late model stock car racers of their time raced there. And my friend Bobby Marcos and his father They have a little thing, Marcos Racing Media, where they do a lot of history videos on their site and put together stuff. Father and son team, and we love Bobby because he's a friend of ours, but they just did some stuff about Ileana that actually I haven't watched it yet, and I can't wait.
Red Hill Raceway, that's a Southern Illinois, close to my hometown, one that's no longer there. Opened in the 90s, closed, I think, 2005. Harmony Speedway?
Harmony Speedway, I know we have it on the map. Do not know in my cranium details off the top of my head, though.
Like where it is?
Yeah.
Well, there's a Harmony, North Carolina.
That might be why I really know the name.
East Windsor?
East Windsor, yeah, New Jersey. East Windsor.
This is fascinating.
East Windsor is a track that I've been to. I don't love. Well, there's a handful of Lost Speedways that I've actually been to when they were open. Like in New Jersey, Flemington Speedway, I got to see it as a dirt track when I was a little kid, and then see it in its second life as a paved track. And now it's a parking lot of an old, I believe, an old Caldor or some sort of department store. Go ahead, Leah.
Reading Banks County. Did I bring that one up already? Banks County.
Probably have it.
Georgia. Tri-Cities Dragway.
Ooh.
I got
See,
one
the
for you.
dragways I don't have a ton, so I like that.
A track that I'd go to a lot in Chattanooga was Cleveland.
Okay.
And Cleveland Speedway, and they closed it down for some reason since I've been here. Do you know about that? This is where I first saw Scott Bloomquist in the Have a Tampa series.
Oh, so it wasn't a dragway. I thought you said
No, not a dragway. It was a racetrack.
Okay.
Cleveland Speedway.
Oh, you watched Bloomer run there?
Scott Bloomquist, it's where I first
Scott Bloomquist is a legendary dirt racer. Look him up.
I think he had just got out of jail, maybe. And
he's been in trouble a few times.
And so, do you remember the Have a Tampa series?
Yeah, Have a Tampa series actually ran here in North Carolina and Charlotte at the Metrolina track too.
What happened to that? Did that turn into
Have a Tampa went away, I believe, disbanded. But now there's so many dirt series. Lucas Oil Dirt Series, World of Outlaw, Dirt Late Model Series. If you've never seen a dirt late model race, they're incredible.
There's also a track called Boyd. It was called Boyd Speedway in Chattanooga.
Yes.
Little bitty old track, but they raced NASCAR.
Yes.
Richard Petty won there. That's on your track?
Yes.
Or on your map?
Oh, yeah.
Boyd Speedway.
It's going to be hard. It's not hard to stump me, but it's hard. It would be hard to stump that map.
You know about any tracks in eastern North Carolina? Any Lost Speedways?
Yeah, Hampton Speedway. That's a really incredible one. And that was huge in late model stocks. But yeah, there's several. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of local racetracks. There was a boom in racing that far preceded the boom in NASCAR of local racetracks, and particularly in America right after World War II. The year or so after World War II produced more local racetracks than ever in the history of the sport. It was the boom. Whether it was stock cars, whether it was modifieds, whether it was sprint cars or whatever, that was the boom. Everybody came back after the war, all the factories that were closed down and the stuff to build things for the war, everything came back to life in America again. And that was the huge boom right there. Go ahead, Leah.
We got a few more. Tar Heel Speedway.
Yes, Tar Heel Speedway is in, of course, North Carolina. Go UNC, go Tar
Level
Heels.
Cross.
But yeah, Tar Heel Speedway ran some NASCAR races, I believe, as well. It's really close to up there where the Petties are, near Randleman.
A dirt track in Western PA, Challenger Raceway.
Challenger Raceway. I have that one on the map. Do not know a lot about it.
Curtis says it's spooky and unique. Come on out.
Ooh, Curtis.
So, Curtis, tell us more.
Curtis, come on. Let's do it.
Spooky.
Here's the thing. We may not explore certain places for the show, but, hey, if this thing becomes successful, I used to go on the NASCAR road and just go take a little jaunt after my work day and find the Lost Speedway and go explore it.
Well,
so I'd love to go explore speedways, even if they don't make the show. So keep them coming.
Lonesome. Oh, you're gonna have to go back and read this chat because there's a.
No, give me Lonesome.
Lonesome Pine Raceway.
Stand by.
Oh, we have props for Lonesome Pine.
This is awesome. Lonesome Pine in Coburn, Virginia, baby. I just brought this down here yesterday.
This is what we have to work with every day.
This is what you have to work with every day. But this is cool because this will be something really neat for the season 1. Of course, the New Asheville episode is very much centric to the Iron Man, Jack Ingram, champion at Lonesome Pine. What a great place. And hopefully coming back to life. So.
Oh, really?
Yes. So
wow.
They were just closed not that long ago, and then hopefully they're coming back to life now. They had a short stint, I believe, back as a dirt track, and I think it might be coming back to life as a paved track now. So, but there you go, Lonesome Pine, International Raceway back then, 1973 souvenir program that we got sent to us. So if you want to send us some old stuff, I know Dale. Oh boy, you don't get mad at me. Every time Dale does it on the download, we get shipments and stuff. But anytime it has to deal with the Lost Speedway, man, I'll take it.
Don't do it until I get my office manager hired.
Bobby Isaac. Oh, this is incredible.
West Virginia Motor Speedway.
West Virginia Motor Speedway is one of the most beautiful speedways. I believe. Who was the former Sawyer that owned Richmond Raceway? I believe he built that speedway or made it to what it was. And it's been shut down for years right now, right off the highway. And it's an incredible location because it's not in the middle of nowhere. It's a great location for a racetrack and like a palace. That place is beautiful. And my friend Rob Blount actually went and explored it for me 3 years ago, and there's an album on my Lost Speedways Facebook page from that racetrack.
Good. Let's do a couple more.
Yeah.
If you got a couple more, do a couple more, and then let him
Let's
go
go
back.
rapid fire.
Let him go back to the chat and.
Well, I'm gonna. One thing I saw, and I'm sorry whoever commented this because I lost it. I didn't copy it and put it in my other doc. But somebody made the comment that tons of old dirt tracks used to be at the fairgrounds, and that's what I remember. My grandpa telling stories about racing at the fairgrounds, and we just have a horse track there now. But every time I drive by it, I'm always like trying to imagine cars on there. So was that common? A lot of fairground speedways
common across this country. And fairgrounds racing nowadays, you see a lot of figure eight or demo derbies and stuff. But in the early days of racing, fairgrounds racetrack were very much a part of the fabric of this country.
Cool.
For small towns all across the country, you'd have your fairs there, and you'd have racing attached to it, and you'd have racing at the fair year-round. And even up the road here in Shelby, North Carolina, the Shelby Fairgrounds, which has an incredible history in NASCAR, and that fairgrounds is still around. But you're a Midwest girl.
Yeah.
That is some fairground-loving people up there.
Well, they like their their corn on the cobs,
Easy.
and fried Oreos over there.
The first time I went to Midwest Track, and I got handed a big thing of roasted corn right out of a grill when I walked in the pits at Milwaukee Mile, and I was like, I've died and gone to heaven.
So that's the thing I love about Richmond International Raceway is that it's like the one track on the NASCAR circuit that has that fairground nostalgic feel to it. You don't even.
That's what I miss about the Milwaukee Mile.
Yeah,
going up there when we used to go up there for the.
I've only been there one time, and that was for a test.
Incredible.
That was for a test with DEI.
That's the oldest racetrack in America. People don't realize that. They think of Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Milwaukee's older than Indy?
Milwaukee is older than Indianapolis. It predates it.
I didn't know that.
The history of that place is amazing. Hopefully it isn't a Lost Speedway.
Sugar Creek?
Shut down.
Sugar Creek?
Sugar Creek, yes.
Okay.
It's on the map.
It's on the map, he says.
Don't have tons of knowledge, so stumped.
Catamount?
Catamount, yes. Catamount Raceway is in it's in the Northeast. I'm trying to get the state in my head now. If it's Catamount Stadium is, I believe, in Vermont, and Catamount Stadium
this is fascinating.
One of my favorite race car drivers
Yeah, he's right.
ever raced there. And I hope, God, I wish I would be so cool if he was watching this. But Dynamite Dave Dion, I know, raced at Catamount. And you want to talk about storytellers that someday I'd love to have on this download or be able to talk to in a Lost Speedways episode. One of the most amazing human beings and passionate about his sport, and just an incredible life that he led was Dave Dion, and that's what I think about when I think of a place like Catamount.
Well, we've gone almost
an
hour and 45 minutes.
What?
Right?
Yeah. Yep, we're an hour and 45 in.
I want to do this. I think that maybe we...
Poor Dustin's been standing this whole time.
Maybe we do this again. This is what I would like to do, is encourage people to go watch Lost Speedways. And maybe next time we really kind of like listen and hear more about what their favorite episodes were. Maybe you saw some of that. But I'd like to really kind of like, this was necessary because I wanted people to understand, and I think you're getting the sense of it, of Matthew's passion for this. I don't know that that's been told well enough even after this, but it's a start. But we're interested to kind of continue conversations going on, and maybe this is the method in which we do it. I enjoyed it. I like talking to Matt. Listen, I like this group we got here. Yeah. Dustin Lee, Micah Caldwell, Schultz is back there helping out. Leah, obviously you do a great job, and this is the group that put this show out there, man. And we haven't had a chance to really kind of dissect and come up for air, and this was the first step in that. Let's do this again, and again, I want to hear more. You can, Leah, why don't you go hit our social media channels? Because I think we can always continue the conversations on Twitter. And Matthew, I want you to make sure that you're getting your...
the Twitter response has been incredible.
Yeah.
We have been blown away at the response of this show. I got to be honest with you. We're humbled by it because we didn't know. I hope you understand that we did this because Dale was passionate about it. And Matthew...
We're doing this no matter what.
But we have no idea if anybody was going to watch it. And that's a fact. It turns out a lot of y'all have watched it.
Thank you.
And a lot of y'all have enjoyed it. And I hope... I want to hear more about it. I want to hear about your experience, what it is, what you liked about it, because it may influence us if we do get a second season. Yeah. We want to be able to apply a lot of the things that we hear from you guys. You guys support Dirty Mo Media. Obviously... We do this stuff every week with the download and Door Bumper Clear. We've got some other really cool things in the hopper to add to our overall platform. So thank you. Matthew, I know it means a lot to you for people that watch this and that support us. It means a lot to me, everybody in this room. And, go check it out on Peacock, man. That's where it's at. And you won't be disappointed with Peacock. Well, after you've binge watched Lost Speedways, there's a lot of other options there that is well worth your time. All right, are we good? Is there anything else?
No, we're good.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead. We'll sign off, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you watching the show and checking out the Dale Jr. Download every week on major podcast platforms. And also, go support Peacock. Here's the thing about it, to be honest with you. Y'all support Dale so much and his endeavors, and he's the one that made this show happen. But Peacock is also, they gave us a chance here to make this show. So go support them. Not many people give a chance for a history show. Let's just be honest, especially in motorsports. So whether you're supporting Dale Jr. or whether you're going to do it to support Peacock or just our sport, I love it if you go subscribe.
If you really want to help us, you'll access Peacock through your Xfinity service. That's how you do it. If you really want to be a supporter. What's our social media handles, Leah? Hit them so they can continue to.
At Dirty Mo Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and if you guys are obviously watching on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button.
Hit that subscribe button. That helps us out. And Matthew, your Twitter handle.
At Matthew Dillner. Really complicated.
There you go. That's 2 L's. That's Matthew, MATTHEW.
DILL. N as in Nancy, ER as an emergency room.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.